Hey everybody, Gary here, and I'm currently shooting on my new camera, the Fujifilm X-T30. After many months of deliberation, I finally decided to pull the trigger and switch from my full-frame Sony a7R II to a more compact APS-C setup. This wasn't an easy choice, but I think it was the right choice for me, and maybe it's the right choice for you too. I've put together a tier list to compare the relative performance of different camera systems, compare system cost, and demonstrate where different systems excel compared to the others. But I kind of think that's overkill. There's been a lot of opining on YouTube about full frame versus APS-C, Sony versus Fujifilm, and a lot of focus on the full frame mirrorless space in particular. For folks that follow consumer technology or photography trends online, you'll find that tribalism and brand loyalty plays way too large a role in the decisions we make about the tools that allow us to pursue our passion, photography, like actually taking photos. Long story short, I can't envision building a full-frame, top-tier professional kit anytime in the foreseeable future. I mostly want a system that's small enough that I actually want to take it everywhere while still retaining that professional shooting capability that I've enjoyed thus far with my sort of semi-pro entry-level enthusiast full-frame Sony setup. But first of all, what am I actually losing by leaving Sony? For starters, maybe the best moderately fast 50mm prime ever made, the Zeiss 55mm f1.8. It's a very sharp, very compact lens that I've used to shoot every one of my YouTube videos. I lose out on in-body image stabilization, which has allowed me to shoot at shutter speeds far below the 1/, reciprocal rule for non-stabilized lenses like my old 20mm f2, the 55-1.8, and the 85-1.8. Perhaps most importantly, I lose out on that 42-megapixel full-frame sensor, which provides a lot of latitude when cropping in on an image in post and recovering details from the highlight and shadow areas, as well as better low-light performance and creating a shallower depth of field given the same aperture and effective focal length when compared to an APS-C size sensor by the difference of about a stop of light. That said, I think I can live without the Zeiss 55mm f1.8. The kit lens on the Fuji is about the same size, and it has a much more useful sort of everyday focal range and a much faster variable maximum aperture when compared with kit lenses from other manufacturers. Second, I've kind of fallen out of love with the 55mm focal length, and I've been leaning more towards the 85mm f1.8 that I've been using for some of my paid work. My new 56mm f1.2, which I'm using to record this video, is the full-frame equivalent of an 85mm f1.8, except it's smaller, lighter, and better built than the Sony 85. The absurdly fast f1.2 aperture means that I can shoot at speeds far above the 1/, reciprocal rule in most situations. And the optical image stabilization in the 18 to 55mm kit lens means that in-body stabilization isn't really a loss for me in most circumstances. The 26-megapixel sensor captures more than enough detail, particularly when the excellent kit lens allows for more precise compositions. And the highlight and shadow recovery made possible in the newer X-Trans 4 sensor is certainly in the same ballpark as the aging hardware in my Sony a7R II. And then there are the clear advantages of the X-T30. Without reading up the spec sheet, I can say this. The X-T30 is incredibly responsive. Unlike the a7R II, which hangs as it writes these massive 42-megapixel RAW files to the SD card. The joystick is an intuitive way to navigate menus and select focus points. And the touchscreen is surprisingly useful, providing smartphone-like pinch-to-zoom capabilities when you're in playback mode. With shutter set to automatic, the electronic shutter automatically kicks in when the scene is too bright for the 1/4000 mechanical shutter. I can have multiple auto ISO settings with different maximum ISOs for each. The view mode button by the viewfinder provides quick access to EVF and LCD priority settings. You can use the control wheel as a button to punch in on the EVF image for fine focus control. All the dials make the switch between conventional priority modes and manual mode strangely seamless. Like, I'll set the shutter dial to A when I'm in bright outdoor environments and then just set it to 1/30 when I'm indoors. The lenses have aperture dials. Am I a manual shooter now? I don't know. You can basically dial in your exposure without ever turning on your camera. There's an auto switch for when you hand your camera to a newbie to take your photo. Look how tiny this thing is. I can charge my camera with my phone charger. There are some other trade-offs. The short video recording time already has me considering the X-T4, and my Sony a7R II had unlimited 4K recording time thanks to a firmware hack. And while the X-T30 is well built with metal plates on the top and bottom, it's not weather sealed. There's no headphone jack, not that I've ever needed one, and the SD card being tucked away in the battery door is less accessible than the side door with the Sony a7R II. But those are minor details compared to the general overall benefits for everyday photography. But where was I? Oh yeah, a professional kit. When it comes to hardcore wedding and event gear, Sony G Master Glass is just out of my price range. That said, many professional wedding shooters seem to get by just fine with an 85mm portrait prime and a 24mm wide prime, both of which are available on Fuji. For fast telephoto zooms, Fuji's 50-140 f2.8 is much more affordable than a 70-200 f2.8 on full frame. And at that sort of telephoto difference, the difference in background bokeh is going to be really, insignificant. I think it makes sense that many photographers start to gravitate towards Fujifilm. Unlike Canon or Nikon or even Sony, I don't think that most people think of Fujifilm when they are considering their first camera. Fuji is geared towards people who already shoot, and the experience of using the Fuji system makes everyday shooting more enjoyable, while retaining the technical capability and image quality necessary for professional work. But that's it. Are you looking to ditch full frame and come over to the dark side of APS-C, or are you looking for a supercharged starter camera with retro aesthetics? Let me know in the comments section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, subs if you loved it, make sure you hit that bell icon so you get notified the next time I upload something else, and until next time, take more photos. Later.